Nursing podcast. I am joined. Oh, first of all, let me introduce myself before I introduce my guest. So, I am Harry. I am a nursing apprentice. I have been a nursing apprentice for about, I think it was about 7 months now. Yeah, 8 or 7 months. And I'm joined by the wonderful Lauren. So, Lauren, who is also a student nurse, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, so I'm Lauren. I have been a student nurse since October, and we're just ending the first part of our not practical, our theory.
Theory, yeah.
So yeah, I've just done, like Harry said, probably about 6, 7 months of theory, and we've just been given our placements and kind of ready to move on to the next part of the game, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, an interesting fact. So, me and Lauren actually study together. So, me and Lauren are students together, or apprentices, should I say? We are apprentices together.
We are apprentices.
We are
We are not
apprentices. Yeah.
students.
So, for layman's out there, the only difference is a student nurse will study full time at, or what we say is the traditional route. They go to university. We, as apprentices, we still go to university, but 1 day a week or 2 days, depending on what your hours are. We work for our NHS trusts,
Yes, it's a
which
normal
bring
apprenticeship essentially.
yeah, it's a
It's
normal
we
apprenticeship.
work and
We
we
study as
study.
well, and we get paid for it, which is an incredible opportunity. Which actually brings me on to my disclaimer. So, all views expressed by either myself or Lauren are strictly our own. They do not represent our university. They do not represent the NHS trusts we work for, or any other nursing organisation, trade union, any affiliated organisation or professional practice. We are simply
Just
just going to
us.
have a chat. It is just us. So, having said that, and having introduced ourselves as nursing apprentices, which actually brings us quite nicely onto our episode. So, this is episode one, Nursing with Balance. So, what I mean by that is nursing with your work life balance. As a student or as an apprentice, Lauren, how would you find balance? Because I know you personally as well, so outside of this and outside of university. So, I know you have a long term partner, you work full time or you work alongside your studies, you're a mother. So how do you find balance in all of the stuff we have to do? And like you said, we're going on placement soon, so that's going to be a massive time to find a balance between being not just a mum or not just a professional, but a long-term partner. How do you find balance in life? What is your work-life balance?
So it's a really good question, and it's actually one they asked us. I don't know if they asked you, but they asked me on my interview for university. Is how do you think you could keep a work-life balance? Because it's becoming more and more realised that a happy worker and a happy person is much more efficient. So just get that ready for your interviews if you're going for interviews. But personally, I'm very lucky. So I am very busy. My life, I keep referring to it. People have been asking this a lot this week, and I keep referring to as like a tightrope. I have my life is very balanced, very precariously upon a tightrope currently, and any little nudge can put us off or completely change my trajectory. But it is a balance, and it's about finding things that are genuinely very important to you and keeping hold of them. So one of my biggest things that I have been so lucky to be part of is during this nursing journey is finding my study group, which without my study group, I really don't know if I would be as motivated as I am. And I don't know if I would be as encouraged as I am. It's quite a isolating experience going into this apprenticeship. It's because you get taken away. I've always worked on a ward. I'm a ward based carer. I'm with people 24/7, and then to suddenly go to studying at home 2, 3 days a week, it's really quite isolating. So I am very grateful that I have found a study group, and they greatly help me find balance. We encourage each other to rest. We encourage each other to do our best, and we realise when each other are stressed and when each other need maybe a little push to open a book and not to scroll through TikTok constantly. So that's a massive help. As for family and home life, have someone who's very understanding is important. My partner works and works a complicated job, and my parents are able to help with the child and finding people to emulate. So I'm very lucky that our trust has been doing this friendship scheme for a few years, and I have seen people with children, with older children than I, doing this, and they've reassured me that it can be done, and I've seen that it can be done, and so I haven't really got an excuse not to. It's difficult, it's harder, but I haven't got an excuse not to. And I think it's just very important to make sure you do find time for yourself. I personally have horses, and trying to squish them in any way I can brings me great joy. I went on my lunch break the other day. I started work half an hour early, so I started at about 7:30 in the morning. Got to 12, we went straight out into the fields, got my horse, didn't have any tack, got on, rode bareback for an hour, came home and started studying again. And just that little break of not looking at a computer, not looking at an anatomy book, not trying to figure out grams to milligrams to micrograms, and just going out into nature and just being me. Oh, just makes you a better
It
person.
doesn't. That's
Just
wonderful, actually. Like, one thing I really struggle with is, so, especially with my situation at the moment. So, having to move back home, live with parents and things. One thing I really struggle with is the space to focus. So I have some
mm,
brilliant friends, and I actually, like, they let me use some of their space, just to say, look, you need to get your head down, focus, and I did, and it was literally, I was so productive. So being able to, I totally agree with you. Being able to have a support network around you is brilliant, and especially because where I see the apprenticeship and the traditional nursing route differ so greatly is because we are still expected to work. Now, don't get me wrong, I know student like the traditional student route, you've got loans and you've got bursaries and all sorts, but we don't have access to that. We still have to work. So, not to say a thus and them, there is, like, I'm not
no,
insinuating,
not at
yeah,
all.
not insinuating an us and them or whatsoever, but what,
It's just different.
yeah, it is just a different, how it's structured differently now, and especially going on placement as well, which is quite eerie because when we go on to placement, our balance is going to be thrown out the window because we will be we've had a massive block of theory, which has been
I've
brilliant.
not worked a full
Yeah,
week.
I know.
I don't know what a full week is anymore. It's
It,
gone. Like my memory of that, my muscle memory has
yeah,
gone.
like I, it,
I'm gonna be a
I do
shell.
find it really, like, when I go on to the ward, just as a doing my normal shift, I've had like X amount of days off, and then it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. What's happened? But in finding that level of balance and drawing it back to finding balance, that what you have is really good. And the study groups, absolutely fantastic. I'll totally agree with you there. Like, having a group of peers that support not just you, but they support each other. Um,
And to like calm me
mm,
down. So I am stressed at the moment. I didn't realize until yesterday. I am super stressed about my placement because it is in Winchester. I'm based in Basingstoke, so it's quite a long way away from where I'm based. And I was told when I started this that they wouldn't do allocated hours, and they've said that they'll send me a rota, and I can't do that with my child. I have to have set
mm,
days. So I'm currently in the position of very nicely speaking to my new matron and my new sister and trying to find a way that will work for all of
yeah,
us. So I am feeling, at the moment, I am very stressed, but just having people around me to be like, what's the worst? Like, the worst case, we'll have to jiggle things about. And I've got people that have offered to look after the child. I've got people that have offered to like pick him up or pick me up
yeah,
if it needed to happen. So yeah, just having people. Honestly, it's such a small but massive
that
thing.
is.
Just having someone that you can be like, I am stressed,
Let
and
me,
then be like, it's
yeah,
okay.
let me
Like
release my
it's
anger
okay.
on
Stress
you.
is okay. Oh
But
God.
yeah, that really goes back to a really good question of mine, actually, or a question that I will throw at you in a moment, because being in this job really relies much on people, not just from the actual care or anything like that, but you need a solid team around you to perform this, to be a nurse and to be a healthcare provider. You do need a solid team around you. Um, but talking about responsibilities, like I said, you've got a child, you've got a long term partner. Um, how do you juggle those responsibilities? Because I know you're not you're in a fairly unique position because a lot of us, especially on within our cohort, don't have children. Within the study groups and things, I think you are one of few people that actually do have that are in a more mature space. You've got your own home, you've got a partner. Sorry, most of us are partners, but I mean, you've got a family. You have a family. You have children or a
Yes,
child.
I am a
You are
family.
a
I am
a
myself as a
family.
family.
And
Yes.
not many of us have that. So juggling the responsibility of being a mother, a healthcare support worker slash nursing apprentice, as well as a student. How are you going to be able to juggle those responsibilities, and how do you find juggling them will benefit you either or benefit your situation as an apprentice, so you can learn, so you can get the best results, and so you can uh, ultimately smash first year and go on to stage two.
So I feel like, as you so kindly referred to me, a mature
Yeah.
student.
I'm classed as a mature student as well. I am.
Okay, I've accepted that
Yeah.
fate. I'm okay with it. I'm just getting there. I know what I want. I've spent a long time fapping
Mm,
about and doing whatever I want to do, but I know what I want, and I want to become a nurse, and I want to do well at this, and I want to make my child proud of me. And so I'm very focused on what I need to do, and I'm not being older. I'm not afraid or like ashamed to ask for help. So I've just contacted learning support about dyslexia.
mm,
They've referred me on to some other things, and to not be afraid to be like, actually, I want this. I'm going to do this, and people are going to have to make not allowances, but people are going to have to help me as well. So people are going to help with childcare. People are going to help with these assessments and things. But it has made me very focused on what I want and how to do it, and it's made me more forthright.
mm.
So I'm not the most, not aggressive, but I'm not the most like, go get it. I was like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. But now, having a family and having such responsibilities, it has made me be like, no, I want this. I will get this, and I will work for this. Some days it sucks. Like some days I've been trying to study with like a banana being hit in my face, with cars on the TV,
Yeah.
and like, but we adapt, we overcome, we you ignore
Oh,
it, and you just keep going, and you've got to let something slide. Like the one thing I am jealous of, I don't think I've told any of you, is that sometimes you guys will message on our group and say, "Oh, I've been studying. Like I studied today. I've done some safe medicate today. I've been practicing," and I get really jealous because I can only study in the hours that we are
mm,
given. I If I'm not there, I have to study in the evening. I can't on my days off. I don't. They're not days off. I have my child. I have to entertain my child, so it's mostly out of the house. I can't sit on my laptop and do like an extra hour here and there. I have to really make sure that the time that I am given, I use. But on that, I also am kind to myself that some days, if I have studied for half the day and nothing's going in, I stop. And it doesn't sound great, but I do. And I stop and I just think, I have learnt this. And surely it's better to stop now with something in my head than try and overload myself to the point where I then lose everything because my mind's just gone blank. So I think it is a balancing act, even in itself, of just being very focused and determined, but also realizing like you are human. We have bad days. Like maybe you didn't work today. Maybe today's your study day and you haven't studied. But have you watched a documentary where they did surgery and you've learned what the clavicle is? Have you watched Grey's Anatomy and seen how to interact with a
yeah.
patient that is distressed? Have you, there is a way of learning outside of just sitting in front of your computer. And I think you have to be a little bit grateful for that as well. And I think that adds into your balance of being just kind to yourself and saying, I've reached my limit, I'm going to just stop.
That's really,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
that's really good because I'll be honest, I'm quite a traditionalist when it comes to studying. So whenever I've studied or tried to study, if nothing's going in, I push myself even harder to try and get something. And that, like you've just said, isn't always the best. And I will agree with that own statement, even though I know I have to do something, nothing's going in, so I push myself even harder. Um, and having said that, I do agree with you. Sometimes you just need a break to say, right, I've done
just
enough.
reset.
Yeah, you need you there.
I've reached my limit
Yeah,
today, but tomorrow, who's to say I'm not going to do 3 hours and
yeah,
suddenly find the stomach the most interesting thing I've ever looked
yeah.
at?
Like I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. Like I've been studying, and we've got our anatomy and physiology exam coming up, and I've been very focused on, and I think I'm probably over focused because I found so much interest in the liver and the gallbladder and the pancreas
Yeah.
and the stomach, and I was like, when we were actually doing the lecture, I wasn't really that bothered. But doing my own research into it, I was like, oh my god, I've learned so
And
much.
finding something that makes sense to
Yeah,
you, like you suddenly get into like this rabbit
yeah.
hole of like,
I've got
wow, like, and that does that, like,
yeah, no,
wow.
I've got so much pretty colours and pretty pictures on
So
yeah,
pretty.
on the stomach, pancreas, gallbladder, and liver. And I was like, I really need to stop doing this and focus on other things because the human body isn't just those four organs.
No, but you never know. That might be where you
Yeah, that is
specialize.
true. That is
It
true.
might, this might become, and my theory is as well. So I was freaking out the other day. I have always been very much into neurology, psychology. Can I remember what the thalamus does? Can I remember the pons? I can label them, and it's just not going in. And I got so angry at myself because I was like, "You love this, like you have always loved." I've got brains everywhere in my house, but apparently that's not going in, and it's just the craziest
Yeah,
thing. Like I don't understand.
that's
But who
who
knows?
knows. This is all a part of
Maybe we're
balance.
meant to be GI surgeons.
Maybe maybe we're just meant to be GI nurses. But that's
Hmm.
all a part of finding the balance within being a student. So it that actually really helps in lead on to my next one. In when do you recognize when there is no balance? So when we have come, a scenario would be like you said, you've worked half the day, or like me, you've worked half the day, nothing's going in. You have in that particular scenario or situation, you have no balance because you're trying so hard to do something, and you don't recognize your own signs of overload or overworking, or you feel, I don't want to say like you're not worthy of it, but you're feeling that you're pushing yourself too hard, and your your structure, your whole life, or your whole balance, your work life balance, your social life balance, your study balance goes out the window. What would you say are some of the signs of you've got no balance and there's nothing?
I think one of the best things again is your friends. Your friends are gonna say like, "Go, you're ripping up through your hair. Like, calm yourself down." But I think equally we are very lucky that this is the start of our journey. And like I say, this whole rota thing is the first bit of real stress I felt. I think we have to learn to become a little bit comfortable with being uncomfortable. We are going to be asked to do things that are outside of our comfort zone because we're learning. And I don't know, I like to know everything and I don't know these things. So I'm learning to balance my state of uncomfort and my state of ridiculous anxiety and stress. And I think we need to realize how different they are, and so sometimes we will have to do a U and sit and push through and be like, no, I've got exams coming, I have to read this, I have to know this, and just accept that other times we're going to balance it
Hmm.
a little bit. And I think to notice it, I would rely mostly on my friends, and if I could feel myself, just you can feel it kind of like
Yeah.
bubbling, and just being like, this isn't okay, like this, we need to stop and we need to just, even if it's an hour, and just go for a walk, or like change your scene really. Our friends go and they realize that they're not working well at home. They sit there and like, no, I'm just chatting, I'm scrolling on TikTok. And they said, like, I've gone to Costa and I've just sat and bought a Costa and now I'm doing loads of work. So like changing your environment and just and putting yourself out there. Like ask people for help. What did you do when you were stressed? What did you do? I found that so helpful, like with the family situation,
Mm.
being like, I'm really worried about placements. I'm so worried about like what do I do? And everyone who I've spoken to has been like, it's okay. Like, it's actually
Yeah.
okay. Like speaking to people that have been in your situation and understand your situation is very, very calming to just hear other people that understand that I've got no money, that understand that I'm studying and I'm stressed and the child's running around naked and I don't know what like an appendix
Yeah.
does. And just being like, yeah, no, cool, I was there last year, but now I know it does and I'm really happy with it. You're like, oh, it does go
Yeah.
in. So just I think yeah, finding older people, older in like education people to tell you like we've all been there. This is normal. Like it's okay. You claw your way back out the hole is very important.
Yeah, I found that. One thing I find I rely on is a lot of the qualified nurses on my ward, because I'm always asking, like they start doing little tests for me now. They go, "Oh, Harry, what's the?" Yeah,
Oh,
they go, "Harry, what's the pericardium? What does this do? What does that do?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Oh Jesus, now I need to remember. Let me go through my
oh,
notes."
that's so
Yeah,
cute.
it's like a little pop quiz every time I come onto the ward now. But one thing, especially like I ask, what was their student experience like? Because as a, dare I say it, a mature student, or a mature apprentice, like I think I've spent most of my career learning, like not as a student or not as a an apprentice as such, but you know went from job to job, you know never really worked in care. This is my first. I say it is my first care job. I spent 3 years as a healthcare assistant or support worker, should I say, before taking the role into. Do you know what? I want to be a nurse. This is my life. This is my life goal. I am going to be a nurse. Um, and I speak to the senior nurses. Not, I'm not talking about the band sixes or band eights. I do to speak to them, but the band fives, especially the newly qualified ones.
You're
Yeah,
qualified.
and I was like, right, what is your experience as a student? How did you find your balance? Like, where was it? And some days they do say there was none. I kind of faked it till I maked it. And some days, some of them are like, I studied, I really hard. I was in the library till 4 a.m. with I say Red Bulls with energy drinks, you know, downing them and making sure that I got everything I possibly could in. And one thing I found is, especially when it comes to the line of trying to find a balance, is it's all very individual. You know,
Yes.
especially for you, it's very individual because and you've got all the additional responsibilities of owning your own home. Having a child and doing everything else.
But it's the same as learning
Mm,
though, isn't it? Everything's very individual. And I know this is really nerdy and I know it's a bit sad, but I'm looking forward to that student
I am.
experience of being in the
I am.
library. And like, at the time I won't, I'll despise it, but will be so proud to look back and be like, reliance. I think it's a very adult course that we are on. Like they give you the details and you are very much expected to go and do it yourself, which works perfectly for how you learn. So like yeah, if you find learning in a quiet environment better, you can go and take yourself. Like it's very much an individual process. And I think finding your process is very important to keeping
Mm.
yourself sane and balanced.
I was going to say, yeah, it's been quite a learning curve for me because, very similar to you, I've been out of education, formal education for a very long time. Doing school, doing college, going straight into work, didn't do uni, and I was very much. They even told us very one from day one, we're not going to hold your hand, we're not going to do this. But I was like, yeah, they say that they're going to do it, and then coming to our doing our first assignment, I was very much like, yeah, they're
Oh,
not going to hold our hand.
oh God.
You know, I kind of need to like sort my life out and get into a routine, which I find that's going to help me. So, one thing that we've said is, if you aren't already, get yourself into a study group. They or use your nursing friends. They will be such a big help because not only will they motivate you, but you will be able to find decent balance along all of you because you may not, because all of us, we all study differently. We all have different learning. I don't want to say objectives, but learning styles. Some might
Yeah,
be a
preferences like
yeah,
auditory or visual or
exactly, yeah, and it's just about finding what works for you and trying to work in a structure that let me put my teeth back in my mouth for a start, but like a learning structure that works both not just for yourself but in a way that you're actually going to benefit
yeah.
because as especially as an apprentice, you've got those 3 days at university plus any extra time you want to do by yourself, and that's you're expected to go out, find the facts and figures, do the research, and going back to next year when, dare I say it, the real work begins, we're going to be having to look through and go be in the library until 4 a.m. trying to find the facts and figures of some random study done in 1987 or on a particular surgery that's only been performed 8 times by a particular surgeon in the UK or wherever, and find out whether his data was or her data was any decent, and you've got to back that up with your own data, and you know that's going to be the difficult bit because well, it's going to be. I think it will be fun, but I think
It's
it will
just
be
the next step, isn't it?
it
It's
is
the
just the
next
next step
step in our learning. We've kind of done
in
the
our.
basics and we've covered them, but I think as well you can't worry about things that you can't control. So currently, I'm not thinking of that. If I'm honest, it's you've got to rely on the process. I assume that
Mhm.
before we get to there, they will show us and teach us how.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You've just got to rely on that process, and I think that's how I keep myself calm quite a lot. Is being like they wouldn't just give me a test or just give me something and be like, "Thanks, find this study and do it."
Exactly, and
Although they don't hold your hand, they will show
guide you.
you,
They will
guide.
guide your
Yes,
hand. They will guide your hand. But that does actually lead me on to another question, actually, because when you're finding the time to do everything, you're finding your time to have a social life outside of studying. You're finding the time to study, being or finding the time for your loved ones, your family, and stuff like that. You know, how would you recommend people do they find that balance within their own life? Would you say it's something like having a diary? Because I have a diary now, and it's been the best thing. If I lose that, that's my whole life gone. Or would you? A lot of my friends outside of my nursing life, um, my student nursing life, our plans are very ad hoc. So they're very, let's do this tonight, or are you on? For me, I'm a gamer, so are you going to be on Xbox tonight? So those are plans that I can just fit in when and whenever because you know they don't take a lot of I don't want to say effort, but like they
yeah,
don't take a lot
pre-planning,
to plan. Yeah,
pre-thought, yeah,
pre-thought. They don't take a lot, but things like organizing a day trip or organizing what I'm going to do next week. Oh, I'm working, or I'm on placement now, especially as we're going on placement, oh, I can't be there because I'm on placement.
yeah.
So, what would you recommend to people when you're finding time to work out a balance, especially when it comes to things being on placement or being on or finding things outside of your nursing life? What would you recommend, or any tips for anyone that you would find that have worked for you in the past?
So again, I think very much it depends on where you are in your life. So
Mm.
quite a few of our friends who are in our group, they are more going out than I am. They're more social than I am, and so they do book. They do going out party. They go out and get drunk quite a lot more than I do, and I think they're a bit more ad hoc. Like you said, they've got the
Mm.
ability to say, but unfortunately, at my age, and again with a child, I've booked one of my friends in about 3 months that I'm going to go see her, but it's really important to me, so I've booked that in. And I think just having a plan and being prepared. So, like I said, I work set days, and I'm trying to get set days for my placement,
Mm.
which makes my life slightly easier than it would your guys's because you would be on shifts.
Yeah.
And I will do nights and I will do weekends. I just will have mine pre-booked. And I think that then leaves me with days free. So currently, if I work what I prefer to work, I'll be free Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I know I've got those days off. And so I can say to friends, like, I am free these days. Like, do you want to do something? But unfortunately, my friends are also just as busy as I am. And so, yeah, we have booked it 3 months in advance that I will go and see her and we're going to her house.
Yeah.
So sometimes you've just got to think what is important. Like seeing my friend is very important and I've booked it in. But
Mm.
things like having a spare hour where I haven't got a child, I will make sure that I'm happy and I will go to the horses and I will order a really delicious takeaway. And just just something to like make it okay.
Yeah.
And I think just keep in mind that it's like, oh, this is really sad. My mum said it to me the other day because again I've been a little stressed. She was like, some weeks aren't your week. Like some weeks it will feel like it is all work and it will feel like my son has recently been really ill. And so I've had him at home with me while studying for nearly 3 weeks now.
Mm.
And it is hard. Like it is hard. And I work hard and I study and then he goes to bed and I study in the evenings and I don't see my friends. But what's 3 weeks and 4 years?
Exactly.
Like it hurts, it sucks at the time, but you have to just be a little bit pliable. And on some days that I should be studying, probably I haven't studied as well as I could, and I have gone out and seen my friend. And I think it's just about keeping that balance. As long as you feel in yourself, I feel prepared. I feel like if you were to sit me down for my anatomy test now, I would probably do almost as well as I will when I actually go to sit down to it. I feel like I'm okay. Like
Mm.
my drug knowledge, I feel like I'm all right. I don't feel behind. I don't feel like left.
Yeah.
And so I think it is just keeping a balance. If I start to feel like, oh God, I know nothing, then it's time to step up my game and not go and see
Yeah.
my friends. It's all about balance, isn't it? And
It
having good
is.
friends and having mature friends that don't mind you saying at the last minute, like, actually, I can't come. I've really got to study. And my friend who studies vicariously through me, she now knows most of the nervous system and she knows the GI tract because good friends come and sit with you during your lectures and have lunch with you and then go home. So that is always a way. There is a way to have it all. It's just not quite how you want it sometimes,
Mm.
but there
There is
is
a
a way,
way. There is a way to have your cake and eat your cake as well.
and I will.
So, thank you for listening to the Level Up Nursing podcast, the first episode, Nursing with Balance. And I would like to thank my guest, Lauren, for taking part. So, if you would like to be a part of the podcast at all, or if you have liked what you heard or listened to, please feel free to contact me on my BPP email, which is h.cowdrey, that is spelled Cowdrey, at my.bpp.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to get the second episode out sometime in June or maybe even July. So, again, thank you for listening and goodbye.